Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Tech Tips. My name is Lucas Morneau, and I am the production manager here at Stritz Gallery. In this week's episode of Tech Tips, we'll be exploring the Panasonic HMC40P HD AVCCAM. Wow, that's a mouthful. So, let's take a look. The Panasonic HMC40P HD AVCCAM, or the HMC40 for short, is a 1080p HD camcorder. In the case, the HMC40 comes packed with extra batteries and a battery charger. It features a Leica Dicomar 4 to 48mm f1.8 to 2.8 lens with a 12 times optical zoom. As you may have noticed, we cannot switch out our lens for another one. The lens is built into the camera, so we're stuck with this lens's characteristics. This is the main downside to most camcorders compared to DSLR and mirrorless style video cameras. That said, this camera is great in low light through these large apertures. Therefore, being able to change lenses isn't that big of an issue. The camera includes both a 2.7-inch LCD display on a swivel mount and an electronic viewfinder, allowing for multiple shooting positions. This, paired with the many ways one can hold this camera, means that we can shoot in any position. The name AVCCAM, as it implies, means the HMC40 uses the AVC HD format. AVC HD uses the H.264 codec and Dolby AC3 audio compression packaged together into the MPEG transport stream. Through this format, this camera is able to record interlaced video. In fact, at resolutions of 1920 by 1080 pixels, the Panasonic can record in 60i, 30p through 60i, and 24p. P stands for progressive scanning. Essentially, interlaced video contains two fields of a video captured one after another. Strips of video scan across the screen instead of the full image scanning across, which is what happens with progressive scanning. 24 frames per second is this camera's native frame rate, so using the interlace option will only lower the quality of the video, especially if you're trying to extract frames. Interlacing is quite a noticeable look, and while shooting with progressive scanning is better in most cases, as it creates a natural-looking video, you might want to use the interlacing option to create a specific look with your video. Unlike other cameras like the Canon 6D and 7D, the Panasonic HMC40 is able to record up to 180 minutes of continuous video. Therefore, this camera is perfect for multi-cam setups, especially for long-form continuous recording. When it comes to ports, the HMC40 features a number of great ports: full-size HDMI, mini USB, 3.5mm jack for external mics, AV out, component out, 3.5mm jack for monitoring audio, camera remote ports, and a mini multi-pin connector for XLR-style devices. So, you won't have any problems trying to monitor your video or audio. Next, let's go over how to use the HMC40. We can turn on the camera by switching the power button on. This power button is found at the back of the camera. To focus our image, we'll ensure the camera is set to the focus mode instead of the zoom/iris mode. After this, we can rotate the wheel on the lens to change our focus. If we were to change the setting to the zoom iris setting, turning this wheel would make this lens zoom. This is not the only way to focus our camera. Tap the screen and an arrow with an F will appear. Tap the arrow and we can see a hand symbol along with AF. Push this, and now we can focus by tapping anywhere on the screen. Pushing the iris wheel will automatically correct the exposure, while turning it will either increase or decrease the amount of light hitting the sensor. This iris function is using both the camera's aperture as well as a built-in neutral density filter to help correct the exposure. Next, let's talk color. In the scene menu, if we look at our gamma, we can see 7 options. For those looking for a log-like image, I would recommend the Cine-like D or dynamic option, a fairly flat option with a moderate contrast. This way, we can have more control of our color in post. And when you're ready to record, push the red record button. It's pros and cons time, and due to this being a dedicated video camera, this camera has thankfully aged well, despite it being over 10 years old. On the upside, this camera is great for beginners. Unlike having to learn how to use a DSLR or mirrorless camera in order to shoot video, using this camcorder style camera is pretty straightforward. The controls are easy to control, and it's a form factor that many are comfortable with. The HMC40, which is paired with great low light performance through the wide apertures of the lens, and great performance in extremely bright settings through the built-in ND filter, has one of the easiest iris functions to use compared to other video cameras. For example, the Blackmagic Design 4K camera I'm using right now only has a push button for iris, and is extremely hard to control compared to the HMC40. And finally, for being over 10 years old, this camera holds up today as a great option for a second video camera on more professional shoots. On the downside, while the plastic body makes the camera light, it feels like it could fall apart if dropped. And not being able to change lenses does limit the use of the camera. We can't use other lenses to create different looks through their unique characteristics. In conclusion, if you're looking to create great looking video and don't really know what you're doing, this camera might be for you. For a second video camera to use in your multicam shoot, maybe consider this one. The Panasonic HMC40P, along with other audio and video gear, is available for rent at Shuts Gallery. Links are in the description box below. My name is Lucas Bourneau. This is Tech Tips, and I wish you all the best.